Hi, my name is Noah Grant, and I am a member of the Cooperative Education Program here at Fredericton High School. I I did my placement at a digital marketing company called Outreach Productions, located in Hanwell, New Brunswick. For my interview, I chose to interview my mentor at Outreach, Ashley Finney. Ashley is the director of video production over at Outreach, basically meaning that she is in charge of overseeing all video related projects for clients and ensuring that they go according to plan. Um, Ashley has many years working in local film, but I'll let her introduce herself a little bit more in a minute. Going into my placement, I didn't have a ton of expectation, but I really just hoped to learn a little bit more about my abilities to function in a workplace and working in a team, and also using creativity involved in my work as opposed to just, mundane tasks. I wanted to see how it would work if I tried to implement creativity into a workplace project. Um, my future goals prior to my placement were really not too set out. I know that I plan to go to university. I'm going to UMB for the Bachelor of Business Administration program. And while I'm still not certain about what I'm going to focus on, this placement definitely helped me to solidify that this is the right type of thing for me to be doing. And I definitely am going into my university experience thinking that marketing might be sort of the direction that I want to go. Um, and this placement definitely helped me to learn that as well, and it was a very valuable experience for me. I got to learn a ton of fun stuff on the job, but I'll get a little bit more into that in a moment. So as I said before, Outreach Productions is a digital marketing firm located in Hanwell, New Brunswick at 2534 Route 640. Basically what they do is clients come in and they help them to get their brand out there in various different ways. What that means is they have a lot of different departments. There's web design, app development, video production, etc. And they'll work with clients in all those various ways to help them get their name out there a lot more, help them promote themselves. Um, Generally, they work very synonymously with one another. So a client will come in and they'll do multiple things. They'll do like videos and they'll also get a website made, something like that. So it works well that there's a smaller team there that all work very well as a team. So without any further ado, we'll get right into the interview. What you're going to see through this interview is basically me asking a series of questions that were going to help me to get a little bit more insight into this career and how to thrive in it and what steps to take to pursue it, as well as basically deciding whether or not it's for me. So what you have is sat down with Ashley. I asked her some questions, which you'll see displayed right here when I ask them, and then she would give her answers, and I threw them together in an edit. And then after that, I'll be back, and I'll give a little bit of a reflection on what I learned in the interview process.
Hello, my name is Ashley Finney. I work at Outreach Productions. I've been here for just over a year, and I am the director of the video department. Outreach Productions is an integrated creative. What that means is we have several departments like website, video, audio, digital marketing, web app design, and all of the departments work together to offer clients an integrated approach to their media management.
What do you believe to be the most rewarding aspect of this position?
I think the most rewarding aspect of this position at Outreach has been working with all of the diverse clients that we have here. No project is the same, and that is kind of unique in a workplace. I've worked on a fishing boat. I've worked at a women's transition house. I've been at I've worked at hotels. I've worked for small businesses. I've worked for the government. We've had a very diverse group of clients, and that keeps everything very interesting and quite rewarding.
Why would you say that's been such a rewarding part of this job?
I think that, not every project goes the way that maybe you envision it will go at the beginning. But when they go really well, whether it's how you planned it to be or something happens in the moment, and you see that look on your client's face and they're really excited about what you're doing, you've had the opportunity to be creative, all of that is very rewarding.
Do you feel that this career allows you to feel you are making a difference in the world?
I think that sometimes that's the case. Often the work that I do maybe might not feel like it matters in like a more grandiose scale, but then sometimes we get jobs and opportunities to do really cool things for the community or for, kind of the greater good, things that align with my core values, and in that way, yeah.
Do you feel that it is important to feel a large sense of pride in your work?
I think it's extremely important to feel a sense of pride in your work. I think that everyone in their life will likely work some sort of job that isn't particularly fulfilling. Luckily, I have found the type of work that I really enjoy doing and find very fulfilling. And that type of work is what I do at Outreach. And also doing things like this, having students around, doing mentorships, giving back in that way, working with the community, that makes my job very fulfilling.
What are some important personal qualities that a person should have to thrive in this career?
I think that in order to thrive in the video or media career path, you need to be very adaptable. You need to be very, I think, caring and compassionate, because we do deal with a lot of like difficult stories and helping people tell them. You need to be able to be a good storyteller, but also be a good listener, to really understand what your client is telling you and what they want. And beside that, I think it's really beneficial to, be just kind and happy and a person that people want to work with.
What are some important skills/experiences to have in order to thrive in this career?
I think that it is important, if you want to thrive in the video making world, especially if you're a technical person, which I am, you need to be able to learn very quickly and be very, savvy with new equipment as things develop and change, which happens super frequently. You need to keep up with the times or you're irrelevant overnight. So a lot of what I do in my spare time is like looking at trends, looking at new technology that's coming out next year, what that's going to look like, so I can prepare myself to be ready for the new market. Beyond that, I think it's important to have an understanding of technology in general, like how computer works, how editing software works. Even if that's not what you're doing specifically, you need to understand how it works so that you can work with your team and communicate effectively. Beyond that, I think that your classic written and oral communication skills need to be on point. And yeah.
How important do you think it is to have a creative element involved in your work?
Ooh, I think it's so important. I chose to go into video production because it is a way that I can make a living while also have a creative outlet every single day. I think that is super important. Do I think it's important for everyone? No. But for me specifically, and for people that choose this type of career, it's everything.
Do you think Fredericton is a good location to thrive in this occupation, or would it be better to move to a different location?
I think that there is the possibility that you can thrive in Fredericton in this occupation. However, there are quite a few fish in the pond already, if that makes sense. So can you do it? Yes. Is it challenging? Yes. If you were to move to maybe a bigger city center, you might have more opportunities to do different types of video work, more feature films, more TV show work, those sorts of things, if that's what you want to do. However, those opportunities also come up here, and there's a really, really cool community of filmmakers in New Brunswick and in Fredericton specifically that kind of help each other and compete, but also make sure everyone has enough work to go around, which is really unique, I think, and you don't think you would find that in very many places. So I think it kind of depends on what you want to do and what you want to focus on. Yes, you can do it, but maybe depending on what you want to do, this might not be the place.
What type of educational path should someone take to maximize their success in this career?
Cool. I think there's really two routes that you can take to be successful in filmmaking. There would be the more traditional university college route, which is what I did. So I went to school for media arts and cultures with a concentration in film production. That's what my first degree is in, and during that program I learned all sorts of things about like the history of filmmaking, some more technical things, but a lot of it was very academic and historic, if that makes sense, which is super useful, and I'm glad I did it. However, then there's option 2, which is the self-taught path. The internet is a crazy thing, and you can learn so much if you are able to find what you're looking for and like really take in information and be a self-guided learner, which not everyone is. So yeah, I think there's kind of 2 routes that you could take.
What sort of practical experience would be valuable when going into this type of career?
I think that the best practical pre-experience that you could have would be to volunteer on a film crew. And if you are in Fredericton, New Brunswick, there is an awesome organization called the New Brunswick Filmmakers Cooperative. You can join it for a super cheap annual fee, and the folks there will hook you up with local filmmakers who often like to mentor new folks. You might get the opportunity to work on a film or 2 in like a smaller capacity, so that you can learn and see if it's something you're actually really interested in doing. And so that practical experience, kind of the volunteer aspect, I think is really important and really a good way to involve yourself in the community. Another thing that you could do would be to make films. Everyone has a phone. There's no reason not to. Find something that's interesting. It doesn't have to be a documentary, but often that's a really good place to start, and just see what you can do.
So what motivates you personally at work?
I am very result driven, so getting a project in the first place, but also then finishing that project is very motivating to me. I do not like to be behind schedule when it's possible to avoid, so staying on schedule, staying on track, that is a big motivating factor for me.
Describe the overall workplace environment here at Outreach.
Yeah, so Outreach has seen a lot of changes since I've been here in just over a year. So I think right now we're still figuring out what that workplace culture will be moving forward with all the new faces that are around. But I think in general, Outreach is a pretty positive place. I think there are a lot of creative people that work here, and I think that we all get very excited about different types of opportunities, which then excites everyone else. And that's pretty cool. I also think that there's a lot of feelings of wanting to grow and change and make the company reflect the employees, which is pretty cool to be involved in.
So what is it about the people here, or just the environment, that you think makes this workplace unique?
The fact that the main shared office space is full of people that have completely different backgrounds and are working on completely different things, but at the same time, we all kind of learn from each other, we all help each other. That I think is unique, because often you share office space with people that are doing similar jobs to you.
What advances in technology will lead to the most major changes in this job in the coming years?
I think that what's really interesting about the film industry is that in, say, 100 years, 100 plus years, that it has been super prevalent. Every decade has been completely different. There's a very distinct technological change, there's a different kind of culture or like focus that you see in films, television, media, whatever. We follow trends, we change things that way. I also think that like AI technology, robot editors, the crazy advances to the size of files and things like that we can get while shooting. Drones have been wild already, and in the next few years I can tell you that that whole thing is going to just blow up and be even more insane than it is now. So I think there's going to be a ton of things happening in the next few years.
What is a strong first step towards a career in digital marketing and video production for someone in high school?
I think that there are a couple things that you can do while you're still in high school to prepare for a career in this industry. I think one thing would be obviously to join the New Brunswick Filmmakers Cooperative or a film co-op near you. Another thing would be to not only look at the current social media trends. I say social media because it's a good place to start, but also kind of look to what's happening in the world, look to the news, look to your community, what other things you're seeing kind of like in the future, and trying to think about what trends will be coming up, because by the time you're actually out in the industry, everything that's on social media and trending right now is going to be completely irrelevant.
What are some of the unexpected downsides of this career that you could not be aware of unless you have experienced it?
Very good question. I think one thing that I didn't expect when I came into this, having immersed myself in media and filmmaking for a very long time, is that a lot of the folks that you're going to work with are not in that world at all. And you need to understand that, and you need to learn how to effectively communicate with people who have no idea what you're talking about.
What do you think that work in digital marketing and video production will look like in 10 years?
I think that it is really hard to say, but if I was to make some guesses, I would say that obviously with everything that's happening in the world right now, there is going to be a lot of focus on finding more sustainable and environmentally friendly ways to do things, period. So I am hoping that will mean less turnover and more I think that it's very common knowledge that, decades ago when something was built, typically it was built to last. We've definitely moved away from that as a society. We've gone to, cheaper materials, recognizing that technology changes super fast, and thus realizing that like this phone right here is going to be obsolete in 2 years. So instead of building something that's going to last longer than that, they make sure that you're going to buy the next thing. With the environmental crisis that we're going through, I think that one thing that we could do as a society to help that would be to stop doing what we're doing in that way, especially with pieces of technology, using things for longer. I'm not saying stop learning and advancing and building and coming up with new things. But I think just maybe being understanding and accepting of maybe not having the latest camera every 3 years. That might be something that happens. Beyond that, oh my gosh, it's so hard to say because, you know, a lot can happen in 10 years.
What qualities might a person have that could be an indicator that this career is not the correct choice for them?
A couple things. You really like to sleep regularly. Probably not going to work very well in this industry, especially if you start out in news or in television of any sort. It's a lot of very, very, very long days. Honestly, it's a lot of heavy lifting often. If that's not your thing, probably not a good choice. Another thing would be you have to take a lot of criticism, constructive sometimes, which is great, and also sometimes not very constructive, on things that you might be very proud of or have put your heart and soul into. So if that's something that's gonna crush you or you're not gonna take very well, definitely not the right industry to be in.
What qualities do you think are essential for management to have to create the optimal working environment?
I think that if you want people to work for you and be happy and do their job well, you need to create an environment that works for those employees instead of those employees working for the environment, if that makes sense.
So what are the personal traits that a manager should have to create that?
Yeah, I think they need to be not only an active listener, but an active participant in conversations and actually make change when it's necessary, even if maybe it's not exactly what they see, but if the greater group needs that in a workplace, it's important. I think being kind is important. I'm not saying you have to be a bubbly whatever person every day of your life to be a good manager, but I do think it's important to an extent be positive and welcoming and understanding. Yeah.
What are 3 words you would use to describe the relationship between the workers here at Outreach?
Creative, driven, and fun, I think.
Could you elaborate a little more?
Yeah. I think you have to be creative to work in this sort of digital marketing industry. No matter which department you're part of, we're all very creative people in our own way. Driven because, again, I think that's really important in most workplaces. But I think in particular, we're a really small team. We do a lot of things as a very small team, and thus we all have to be quite driven individuals to accomplish all of the work there is. And fun. We have an axe throwing thing set up in our office, which we all use fairly regularly. For example, I think we all really enjoy games. A lot of folks here are very funny. I would include myself in that, but it's fine. And yeah, I think everyone is a joy to be around, so fun.
Do you think that a place like Outreach Productions could be a lifelong career?
Yes, I do. I think that with a smaller team, there's a lot of benefits and there's a lot of challenges. Benefits being, you kind of get to find your own way and do what works for you, because you kind of manage yourself in a lot of ways. You have to. That said, I also think that managing yourself, being on top of all sorts of projects, running your creative battery 24/7 can result in burnout, and I think we see that a lot in our industry. A lot of people will take a couple years off and do something else and then come back to video, myself included. I was a teacher for years. So I think, yes, if you have the tools in your toolbox to like have that longevity.
Do you think that generally a smaller company is better to thrive in this type of career than, say, a larger company?
I think that they both have very different pros and cons. I don't think that extra large companies are ever maybe the answer. I don't think that that's a good model myself. But I also think that sometimes in a small business, you need to make sure that you have resources outside of that business that you can call upon, like freelancers, for example, use one of those here, in order to make the amount of work per person sustainable.
What value do you think that young people bring to the field of digital marketing and video production?
I think that young people bring a lot of value to the field of this field, but also, I mean, any industry or workplace. And I think that it's often for the same reason. I think that as people do the same thing or get comfortable in their career, have worked in the same industry for a while, inevitably you get a little bit jaded, or if not jaded, then just comfortable, I guess, if that makes sense. You get into a rhythm and you don't really break that. Bringing in young, fresh, new faces to an industry, I think have a reviving effect on folks that have worked in it longer. And not only do they bring new ideas, but they can also remind us of the basics that we may have forgotten along the way, which can kind of reinvigorate us. So I think having new folks is so important.
So that was my interview with Ashley Finney, the director of video production over at Outreach Productions. I definitely got a lot out of that interview that I thought was very valuable. It was an opportunity for me to ask some of the questions that had been brewing for the entire duration of the placement. I definitely think that the biggest takeaway for me from the placement was just how valuable it is to have a creative element involved in my work. And I know Ashley said that it's so important, and I 100% agree. And maybe that's just for me. I don't think that's necessarily the case for everyone, but I do think so. I'm somebody who loves all different types of creative mediums, and I think that if I tried to go into a workplace every day and just do a mundane job where I'm doing the same thing day in and day out, I'm gonna drive myself crazy. And this placement as a whole really helped me to learn that, and really helped me to learn that that is something that I can do, because through school I always felt like creative projects were fun, but they were always very restrictive by the rules of the project, right? And so this was an opportunity for me to get to fully embrace that within a workplace setting, and it really helped me to learn that my ideas beforehand were wrong, and that having a creative element in my work is important for me, and definitely something that I want to have. And as well, I learned a lot about how a good workplace should function. I asked Ashley questions about that, and especially for me, who's someone I could see myself in a management type of position someday. I asked questions about good qualities for management, and I definitely think that those were qualities I could have. In terms of just qualities going forward in this career that I think that I do have, or at least that I could improve, definitely my camera skills and just knowledge of the equipment. I didn't have that really beforehand. Not a lot of people do, but that would have been great to have before going into the placement. It would have helped me to not have to stop every now and again and ask what something is or how to work with it. So that would have been good to have. But beyond that, I definitely think that my ability to communicate and to work with people, that helped me a lot, actually, and my ability to problem solve. That's the big thing that I was told always that a lot of this job is just problem solving, and that is true, you know. And it's not necessarily always big things; it's small things. And there were multiple times on the job where I was able to solve problems that actually progressed us towards getting the bigger job done, right? Looking forward in terms of what I'm taking from this placement, I definitely think that my career plans, I wouldn't say they've changed, I would say they've been guided. I'm taking a lot from this that I learn is important for me in a job, like I said, that creative element. And I knew I wanted to do something within the business field, and marketing was something that I had strongly thought about. And this placement definitely guided me more towards that direction. It's helped me to think that that is probably the proper area for me, right? And in terms of my educational path, I know that. So I said that I'm going to UMB for the Bachelor of Business Administration program. That's not what Ashley said when I asked about what the ideal educational path would be, but it was something that she and I discussed in the past, and I do think that it would still work for me, and I think that it gives me more options if I ever wanted to branch out beyond just marketing. Whereas if I sort of was self taught or anything like that, I wouldn't be able to do that necessarily as easily. Um, One thing that also really stood out was when I asked about staying in Fredericton for this type of position. And yes, it could be competitive, but I do think that this is a good location for that and something that I could see myself staying here, realistically, is what I learned from this interview if I wanted to do this type of career. Um, and I definitely think that that's something that it's good to be able to get this experience and ask that, because otherwise you don't always know. And generally speaking, my whole co-op placement, that's the story of it, right? It was a good opportunity for me to get in there, ask questions, and get answers that will pertain to my future. And I definitely think that it was the correct decision for me to take the co-op program. I'm someone who still is not really sure of what I want to do in the future, and this was a great opportunity for me to be able to sort of test something out, and I did like it. And it's helped me to feel confident in my decisions moving forward and to know what's important for me. And this interview and just the whole co-op placement really helped to do that. And I'm very thankful for the opportunity.